Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes are sweet and sexy. Have fun, enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. Not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish and Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculous that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes are sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Good morning. Good morning, my friends, and thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. Today is Monday, March 3rd of 2025. It's going to be a busy week in the world of Karen Read. We've got court tomorrow, Wednesday, and then again on Friday. So much to talk about, so much to go over. But as you know, we have a really special guest for you today, and I'm so excited that he has agreed to join me on my channel. Vinnie Politan of Court TV is here. Vinnie and I met a year ago on January 1st of 2024. We were both guests on Profiling Evil with Mike King. It was a big day for me. It was a big day for me because I've been following Vinnie on Court TV since, the OJ case. So that was exciting. And during that show, we talked a little bit about Karen Read. And since then, so much has happened on this case. Vinnie is here. He's backstage. He's got about until maybe 11 o'clock. So save your questions for later. And please welcome my friend and yours, the one, the only, Vinnie Politan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Love the intro song. My favorite piece of video from the whole thing was and I'm jealous, you got a picture with Johnny Ray?
Yes, I did. Yes. I went to court.
Johnny Ray. I love Johnny Ray.
I do too.
He is such a passionate advocate, but also just like a character, a character. And, I have tons of guests on and we meet remotely all the time. I've spoken to him hours on television, of course, about Lisk, but, someday I want to meet him in person just to, say, hey, Johnny Ray, and I want to get a picture like you got. So
I did. We were in court for James Burke. James Burke was the former police chief in Suffolk County who eventually went to jail. And in my opinion, that's the reason why Rex Sherman was never caught, even though they had a description of him in the file in 2010. For those of you who don't know, John Ray is an attorney on Long Island. He represents the family of Shannon Gilbert. For many, many years. He's been doing that for free.
And usually wears that nice derby. He's always got some sort of outfit going on. It's amazing. It's amazing.
The seersucker suits, the sartorial splendor with John Ray is off the charts. And people say that he's eccentric and he's passionate. He's definitely passionate. People come to him instead of going to the police with their tips because, a lot of people are afraid to go to the police. We're seeing that a lot. In a lot of cases.
The problem with that case was that the local police were the problem getting the case solved. So a serial guy is out there for years. Like, how dangerous was that?
Yeah, since 2010, when body parts started washing up here in 92, these are the beaches I used to take my kids to. So that was a little disconcerting. And to know that they had a description of a 6'4" to 6'6" ogre-looking man who drove a first-generation green Chevy Avalanche, right?
Right. Like, how many of those were there?
Not a lot. I could have done that in my law office. I could have run a cross check on DMV because the car was registered to him. Could have been caught
Unbelievable.
2010, and here we are. Now he's wanting a couple of different trials. He doesn't want all his cases tried together. That's going to be interesting. I hope you'll come here for that trial, because I'll save you a seat in the courtroom.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'll get up for that, but there's no cameras for that one, which is really a shame because that's New York. New York is
Oh,
a
you gotta
shame
come.
when it comes to cameras. When Court TV first launched, we were getting cameras inside the courtroom in New York. Then they had a sunset provision in the law, and once that sunset, they don't even want to talk about it. They don't even want to talk about having cameras in the court. And Court TV lobbied locally in New York because there's so many great cases coming out of the jurisdiction, but to no avail. So it's a shame because people need to see that.
Yeah, I think that we should get to see everything. Delphi was a disgrace. No transparency.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on Delphi. Don't get me started. They changed the law. They changed the law in Indiana to permit it, and they still didn't in that case. In a case where everything is about public trust, like the public, there's a large portion of the public doesn't trust the verdict. Well, you might trust the verdict a little bit more if you actually saw the evidence, right? Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't based on what the evidence is, but you have no chance in a case like that when the public doesn't get to see the evidence firsthand. So it's just sunshine. That's why Florida is great.
Right. Oh yeah, a lot of crazy cases coming out of Florida. I mean, you got Sarah Boone, you have all the crazy cases. Did you see the case where the dentist beat the doctor with the golf club on a golf course?
It's,
and they allowed stand your ground. They dismissed his case. Yeah. They said it was self-defense because the guy spit in his face. I mean, it was wild. Ashley Benefield, so many cases out of Florida and Georgia, so many crazy cases out of Georgia too. But the craziest case that has taken up my attention for the past year has been the Karen Reed case. And I just want to play a little clip of our like meet cute. So let me just put this.
Okay.
This is when you and I were on the show with Mike King. This is New Year's Day, 2024. And this is where we just started talking a little bit about the Karen Reed case. I speeded it up a little bit just to let everyone know where we started talking about this.
We went out for Johnny Depp. So this upcoming year, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, there's another one I want to go to. I don't know if you've heard of this one too. Karen Reed.
Yeah.
Yes, this one. Like, this case, it's like, I've never seen anything like it where you've had protests at the courthouse asking for an accused police killer to be freed. Like dozens and dozens of people, like marching. And then now they're arresting the protesters. They're all getting charged. Like it's crazy. The leader, the podcaster leader, Turtle Boy, and the Turtle Riders, those are his followers. So Turtle Boy's in charge. They're alleging that he's harassing witnesses, etc. I don't know, maybe he might get sued for defamation for accusing people, but he's basically echoing what the defense is saying and what their case is going to be inside the courtroom. So I don't know. But I've never seen a case where they've tried to shut down the protests at the courthouse this way. But I've never seen the protests kind of go this way. I've never seen anyone stand up for an accused police killer, right? Have you seen that? Like,
no. And another thing that I haven't seen, I don't know if you caught Turtle Boy's tweet today from jail. I think it was from jail. At least he said I'm sitting in jail and said I'm ramping up for the best year of my life. And I'm thinking, if I were in those shoes, I'd probably be thinking a little differently. But I'd like both your kind of weigh in on this impact that social media is having on these criminal cases. And I don't want to talk about the good side of it because I think there's a lot of good that comes from airing these stories and asking the public to help solve a problem. What I'm interested in is your thought on what I see becoming more and more a defense strategy of we can't go to trial because too much is being said. And then, like we're seeing in Karen Reed, having people that come up in such a aggressive way and push that same narrative out. I'll start with you, Vinny.
Oh, want to go first? Okay. I'm a big believer in First Amendment, right? So I believe that people should be able to voice their opinions about whatever they want, right? So it gets tricky here, right? And I had Turtle Boy on my show, and this was before he was charged or indicted or arrested for any of the protests or alleged interference with witnesses. And on my show, I kind of gave him some advice. I said, you got to tone it down. I said, you can't get in people's faces. You can't, I was trying to give him a little bit of a hint that this was going to go down the wrong road for him. Like if they continued, going after specific people, like you can protest free Karen Reed, make your proclamation, say, what about this evidence? What about that evidence? But it seemed like they were specifically going after people. And what I'm about to say applies to just about anyone because everyone's presumed innocent at a certain point, right? Like, and on my show, we talk about the evidence and what the evidence seems to prove. And we do it for people who've been charged all the time, right? Whether it's a podcaster, me on television, my guests, anywhere, people will talk about, well, the evidence and it looks really bad and this person looks guilty because of X, Y, and Z. And what's happening here is it's happening for the other side. And I'm like, and the prosecutor put out this video saying these witnesses are presumed innocent, just like the defendant. But the defendant was in court, was handcuffed, all of that. So I don't see a negative side to it. I just see it as the airing of whatever evidence is out there. And it's going to be up to the lawyers to figure it out in the courtroom and prove their case. I think you can always find 12 people. We found 12 people in OJ. There's never been a bigger case in modern, jurisprudence. We found 12 people there. He was found not guilty. So, and the public at large thought he was guilty. So, it is what I believe our system works. But you just can't defame people. You can't defame people. And even criminal defendants until they're proven guilty. They're alleged. The evidence shows this, the evidence shows that, but you can't sit there and say this person did it. And I think that's the danger, is when we cross over into the world of defamation, and people who are podcasters or people making comments or people just posting on their own thing have to understand that when you say something in public and you accuse someone of doing something terrible and it somehow damages them and it's not true, that's a problem. It's not just me on television, it's anyone on social media could be part of all of this. I'm just I really want to see where this all ends up with criminally charging these protesters. And what I don't like, it's a case where the allegation by the defense is a conspiracy by the state, right? And now all of a sudden, the people who are yelling there's a conspiracy by the state are now also being charged by the state. That's not gonna create more public trust. It's gonna create less public trust. And that's if they broke the law, they broke the law. We'll see, how the case is developed. But I think that's the other danger from the other side of all this. But I'm big on the First Amendment, so it's hard for me to tell anyone to shut up when all I do is talk, as you've noticed.
Melanie, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't know how much time do we have for this. I would love to go toe to toe with you, Vinnie, on Karen Reed, because yes, there's a cop killer, but I don't even want to get into this right now because we don't have enough time. There definitely is a cop killer. I'm not that convinced that it was Karen Reed. And when they start arresting people like Turtle Boy, he's doing 90 days right now for something unrelated to this. But because he's been speaking out, they've had sights on him and they want to kind of shut him up. And I don't agree with all the stuff that he's doing or any of that. But the fact is that there's just so much more public attention on this Karen Reed case than there would have been had Turtle Boy not taken up this cause. And I think that I don't think that they're alleging so much of a conspiracy by the state as they are alleging a conspiracy by maybe some of the people who may have been in the house. And if we're going to back the blue, let's back the blue. Let's back John O'Keefe and let's try and find John O'Keefe's real killer. But I looked at the autopsy photos and they do not look to me to be like something that happened from a car. I mean, they look like dog scratches. The dog has disappeared. The basement carpet got ripped up. The house was sold. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but we don't have enough time for that. But that's my opinion. And am I going to get arrested for saying it on the air? I mean, that's what we're getting to now.
No. They took it one step further, though. They're pointing the finger at very specific people. And I know they're protesting like at their place.
So that's kind of our first thing. And then you did invite me on Court TV, and I came on Court TV twice. It's always been my opinion. Look, I'm a civil litigator. I've handled thousands of car accident cases, and I've never seen a case where a pedestrian's been hit by a car and did not have some type of injuries below the waist. A hip injury, a knee injury, a leg injury. To me, it was always about the injuries. He's got a gash on the back of the head, multiple skull fractures in multiple places, brain bleeds, what I believe is a dog attack injuries to the right arm. And so for me, it was about the injuries. And here we are more than a year later. We've seen a mistrial. Tell us your thoughts about, go wherever you want to go with this. You want to talk about the mistrial, the double jeopardy, and then we'll get to what's happening today as we sit here and they're still turning over more evidence.
Right. There's a lot of things that have developed, right? First thing though, when you speed me up, that I sound like Ben Shapiro when he's like in regular speed. It's amazing, right? So the first thing is I'm just in search of one thing, which is because I'm a former prosecutor, right? That's where I really cut my teeth in a criminal courtroom, is as a prosecutor. And it's about the truth. Now I'm at Court TV and we're watching cases, and I just want the truth to come out inside of a courtroom. And the biggest problem I have overall, and it's happened in this case as well, is that we put these blinders on jurors, and we don't let them see as much as we want. Now, in most situations, it's usually the defense who wants these things on, right? It's the defense that is making the motions to limit what the jury gets to see and hear. And now it's like the shoe is on the other foot in this case. And to me, that's a problem. I stand up on the soapbox and I argue all the time. I understand the rules of evidence and everything else, but you got to be a little more liberal with the interpretations of them. We've got to let pieces of evidence in. Let the jury understand the story, because when you're hiding things from the jury, they sense that. And that has as much prejudice, if not more prejudice, than letting the information in that you're saying is so prejudicial. So that's a one problem let's talk about the way the verdict came down and all the information that we learned from the jurors who have come forward. This is troubling to me because there's no sense that anyone, whether they're wearing a robe or they're a prosecutor, wants to know the truth of what actually happened in that jury room. Like there's no sense of curiosity. Like it's irrelevant to the discussion because they didn't fill out a piece of paper. And as we've learned from this jury, like I suspected, is that the jury is confused. Our system of justice abuses jurors. We send them this notice. They come in under court order. They can get in trouble if they don't show up. And then we make them sit there and make a really tough decision, which is about life and death, literally, in cases like this. It's not easy to be a juror. And then we don't give them all the information. We just don't give them the information. How about, and I've seen, because we cover jurisdictions across the country, right? So it's a wide array. And I know the way law is practiced in criminal courtrooms is there are some common denominators, obviously, that are driven by the Constitution of the United States, but there's a lot of local nuance. Like a casing, you could take the same trial and put it in California, put it in Florida. One trial will be 3 months, could be the same exact case. And in Florida, you could be done in a week and a half.
Right.
I mean, this is just the way they practice law. Okay, that's fine. But when it comes to things like communicating with the jury, Massachusetts has a problem.
Yeah.
They have a real problem. They don't want to know. The case law is like they have no interest in what's happening there, and it's really juror abuse is what it is, because they don't know. Like the lawyers and the judges are arguing over how things should go down right at the end of the case, and we're presuming that the jury knows all this stuff.
Right.
Like, how about a jury that sends out a note and says, "Well, we're deadlocked," and then they get sent back. They send out a note, "We're deadlocked." They get sent back. How do they know what's going to happen when they send the next note out? They have no idea when it ends.
Right.
They don't know what the rules are.
Right.
And the other sides are arguing during the course of the trial what the rules should be. So this jury, and it only takes one, because one is writing the note. We all agreed to it, but there's influence inside there. There's the interaction of humans, and some people have stronger personalities as to what is and what isn't. Did they really understand what was going on? No, but we don't even have the curiosity to find out.
Yeah.
And that's the real problem.
Yeah.
Right? Bring them in. It's, oh my God, you can't bring a juror in. I've seen it. I've seen a judge go back and forth with a jury while they're in the box.
Right. We saw it in Murdoch. They brought the jury back to talk about the alleged witness tampering by the court clerk, Becky Hill.
Yeah.
Right. We saw that. We've seen it. We saw it in the Maya Kowalski trial, which was a civil case. They called in juror number 1 after that trial was over because his wife was allegedly in some YouTube chats, super chatting YouTubers. We see it a lot. And it's really disturbing because I watched the jury instructions. Look, I've been doing this for 30 years. The jury instructions were confusing to me. And I heard the judge clearly say, "Do not come back to me until you've reached a consent. Don't even fill out the forms until you've reached a consensus on all of the counts." There were 3 different sheets. It was hella confusing.
And here's the other thing about bringing the jury back, how Massachusetts, like, you can't cross that line. But if there's an allegation of some racial improprieties, right, that something was driven by that, then we can bring it back, which is right and fine. But which is worse? Someone that a case where there may have been some bias that might have influenced the verdict, or an actual verdict that's being ignored and someone being tried twice for the same crime. Which is the greater of the wrong in our system? Someone who may have, right? It's not even, and it's all about bringing the jurors back. They'll bring them back because someone may have said something racially inappropriate during deliberations, and it may have influenced the jury, right? Versus they actually reached a verdict and were confused about what they were supposed to do, and now someone is being tried twice for the same crime. Which is a greater evil? And it's not about the conclusion. It's about just having the inquiry.
Mhm.
Just bringing the jury back to find out.
Right. And you
I
don't
would
need
say
to
they're at least equal, but it
Right.
may be even greater to have some, because that's in the Constitution. Like, you can't try someone twice for the same crime.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
insane.
constitutional right. Double jeopardy.
It's insane because they've made, and the Massachusetts attorneys I've had in my show are saying, no, we don't do that. And the case law is very clear. Well, the case law isn't so clear. The case law was clear until they made an exception. Now it's time to make another exception. Like, that's the way the law works.
Needs
It
to
evolves.
change.
It's not set in stone. The interpretation of the Constitution and how it applies to what happens in a case changes, and it's nuanced. And all of a sudden, there are factual scenarios that you never thought could have appeared, and they do. And you have to deal with them in the interest of justice. And not to have the inquiry, to me, was really like no curiosity about the truth. Then why are we even having a trial?
Yeah. And it wasn't even like they had to inquire into the deliberative process of the jury. It would have been a
No.
very simple, did you agree to quit on count one? Yes or no? It could have been done in chambers. It didn't have to be done on television in open court, because this judge has done so much stuff outside the public eye. Every sidebar conference to talk about every objection. There's so much that we didn't hear, when they played that inverted video in the middle of the trial that
Okay.
suddenly magically revealed itself. You remember that, right?
Yeah. I had a huge problem with it. I thought it would play larger with the jury. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But let's compare things again, right? I'm all about the goose and the gander. So you have a prosecutor who's presenting a piece of evidence where direction matters, right? Left side versus right side matters more than anything, and presents a piece of video that is inverted and nobody knows it. Nobody especially the 12 in the box, have no idea. And the prosecutor is showing them this video. And the most important thing is the right tail light. And you look at the right tail light on the video and no one is going there. There's a bunch of people over by the left tail light, but that's irrelevant until you reverse the video. So it was a piece of evidence that the testimony was false about it. The testimony was a lie, right? The presentation of it was fraudulent by the prosecution. And what happened to him? Nothing. Nothing. And now Alan Jackson may very well have done something wrong in that sidebar, misrepresented something. Maybe he should have provided information about this communication with the expert on that weekend before the testimony, right? So what should happen to him? Which is worse, not providing that piece of information, or misspeaking, or perhaps even lying on the sidebar, versus perpetrating a fraud on a material issue that actually matters, right versus left, right? Yeah. So I said, give him the same punishment that Lally got. Same exact punishment. I'm for fairness here. Alan Jackson, you screwed up. Lally, you screwed up. You guys get the same punishment. And what would that be?
A slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
Lally got nothing. Lally got nothing. And here's the thing. He puts Buchanan up on the stand. He knows the video is inverted or mirrored and it's flipped. He says, he asked Buchanan, is this a fair and accurate representation of the Sallyport on the date of the incident? He says, yes. He goes on and on to testify how no one's around the taillight. And, there's ghosts appearing in and out of the video. There's time skipping, and there's a timestamp that's not inverted, coincidentally. And then only on cross is it brought out, where Alan Jackson says to Buchanan, so is this really isn't it backwards, and or is it fair and accurate? And Yuri says something like, well, I mean, everything that happened in the video is, but it's like a mirror. It's like when you look in a mirror and things are just, reversed. And it was wild. It was in any other case that we've ever seen, this would have been an immediate mistrial. It would have been, and they argued sidebar about it. Nothing was done. And now there's a motion. So that trial keeps going. Now there's a motion to dismiss this case for egregious governmental misconduct. And one of the points in the motion is that, look, they turned over this inverted video. They perpetrated a fraud on the court. They suborned perjury. And then after the trial is over, all of a sudden they're turning over more Sallyport video. Today, they are scheduled to turn over even more. And what they've been telling the court all along is, we don't have that video anymore because The system overwrites itself every 30 days. So all of that video was overwritten. Now they're turning over this piecemeal video, the latest of which shows Karen Reed's vehicle being backed into the Sallyport.
Wow.
So it shows the rear taillight, but coincidentally, it's blurred out.
What do you mean it's blurred out?
It's blurry. You can't see the
Right.
rear taillight in that video. There's no metadata. They've made a motion to the court for metadata. The judge said, nah. The metadata is so important, as you know,
Right.
from Johnny Depp trial and others.
No,
That is
everyone's jumping up and down about, Alan Jackson not, it's really complying with discovery and lack of candor. And is it any different than what we've seen from the other side? So if Jackson, and I think there's real danger, he might get kicked off this case. I think there's a real chance. I mean, you listen to the prosecution, the temporary prosecutor who's really trying the case like a defense attorney.
Mhm.
He's trying to kick him off.
I
He
think
wants
so.
the whole prosecution team done, even
Yep.
though he knows Yannetti and he's friendly with him. He wants the whole team done. Here's the other problem I have right now with the way the case is being tried. Because again, I'm a former prosecutor. People have accused me through the years of being too pro prosecution. Well, I say, yeah, because, I would say an overwhelming majority of the people who are arrested and charged are in fact guilty. You look at how many of them plead guilty. Then I watch the trials and I've seen the evidence through the years. It's not, I am prejudiced by the evidence that I see. And you might see it differently than I do. That's fine. But I have that filter, right? So I'm looking at the way they're trying this, and they're trying it like a defense attorney. And I say this all the time, and it's usually taken as an insult by some defense attorneys. But I say the ethical obligations of a prosecutor and a defense attorney couldn't be more different. Like you look at them, like if you just walk into a courtroom, you say, "Oh, lawyers there. It's the same. They're arguing this and they're arguing that." No, it's not like that at all. Like a defense attorney has an absolute obligation, an ethical obligation to the client, right?
Mhm.
So you've got to protect the rights of that client, right? You can't commit fraud. You can't do that. But your number one goal is to protect the rights of that client and make sure that they are not wrongfully convicted, and make sure that the prosecution, if there is a conviction, has actually proven the case legally and within the confines of the Constitution, et cetera, right? That's an important role.
Yeah.
Prosecutor's job, an ethical obligation, is to justice, which is the truth, period, end of story. So I don't like prosecutorial gamesmanship during a trial. Like, why are you wasting any time trying to get rid of a lawyer here, get rid of a lawyer there?
Right.
You have the facts. You brought the case. You believe that the person's guilty. You believe you have the evidence to prove it. So just go in the courtroom and prove it. I mean, it almost shouldn't matter what they're doing.
Right. Or what experts they want to call.
It's about you putting your evidence there and proving it, period. Because if it is the truth, then it shouldn't be. I know it's hard to prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt, but like that's what your job is to take the evidence that you have. You chose to bring the case because that is what justice is, right? You believe truthfully that Karen Reed did this and did this on purpose. All right, go and improve it. Stop with the gamesmanship of trying to eliminate experts from testifying, kicking defense attorneys off the case. That's gamesmanship. That's what the other side does.
Right.
And I make fun of them when they do it, but that it might be in protecting the rights of their client. That listen, that prosecutor's not playing by the rules. I'm going to get him kicked off the case. Okay, that's your ethical obligation. How is getting Alan Jackson kicked off the case? How is having an expert banned from testifying upholding the truth? Like, it doesn't matter what the expert says.
Right.
You have the truth. Well,
Right.
Bring in your expert. It better be better than last time, but bring in your expert to prove the truth, right? Like,
Right.
I don't
Why are
understand
you
this gamesmanship. It doesn't make sense to me. It wasn't the way I practiced when I was a prosecutor. The facts were the facts. And a quick story. I know I'm talking a lot, but I
No, please do, because everyone wants to hear from you. And I just want to touch on also the ethical obligations of a prosecutor and how they're so much greater, you can't manipulate evidence. You can't hide evidence. You can't
No.
withhold evidence.
Nothing. You've got to let it just let it. Like I practiced in New Jersey discovery. Like we gave you everything. We gave you everything. Right. And we would give you the transcript to the grand jury. You got everything. And that was, I was reared on the way New Jersey does it, which is, it tilts very much to put the pressure on prosecutors and to allow the defense to have all the information before the trial. And as a prosecutor, you had to do what you had to do. So this is one of the first trials I'm trying. It's a silly case, but it was a case. It was like breaking into a car, whatever. And I had my police witnesses. We met in the conference room because I had 12 files. I didn't know which case I was going to try that day. So it was like this one. Okay, I'm going through it. I'm vaguely familiar with it. So I'm meeting with all the witnesses, and it's like three officers, and they're like, "Okay, counselor, what do you want us to say?" And I was like, "Time out."
Right. What?
And this is like one of the first trials I'm trying, right? I think it's like my third trial. I said, just tell the truth. That's all. It's that simple. Just tell the truth. So then I went through with them, all of them. I have my investigator there. I never interview witnesses by myself. My investigator's there as well. I would say, all right, so, what happened? What did you see? I have the report as well. Just kind of, that's it. Just tell me the truth.
Yeah.
That's all. You don't need to hide anything. It is what it is. It is what it is. Number one, I'm not risking my license to practice on any of these cases, but I take my oath seriously. Like I swore an oath, and that's what I'm going to do. So this gamesmanship, it's weird, right? Because Alan Jackson was a prosecutor. That's how I got to know him out in LA.
Yeah. Phil Spector, right?
Spector, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a great prosecutor. And he ran for DA. He lost, but if he had won, LA'd be in much better shape right now.
I think so too.
And then, so he's the prosecutor who's defending, and now you've got this defense attorney who also prosecuted in the past, I know, but he's coming in as the prosecutor. But his mindset is very aggressive, like a defense attorney. Stop them from doing this. Stop that. Stop. I thought you had the truth. Just present your evidence. So that's why I have a problem with the way this is being tried right now. It's all about the gamesmanship rather than the facts and the law and the truth. Prosecuting should be, it's a difficult burden to meet, but you choose to meet it by, returning the indictment. But you've got to lay out your facts. Your job is pretty simple. You just got to you got to tell the story and then prove the case to the jury, period.
First of all, why did they need to go outside the DA's office to hire an outside counsel without a conflict? There was no conflict. There's 50 attorneys inside of that office. I call this the hot potato case of Norfolk County because nobody wanted to touch it. Adam Lally, I thought the way that he tried the first case was completely on the defense. It was like he was playing offense. It was like he had the ball the entire time and he played defense. For the first 50 witnesses, we didn't hear anything about John O'Keefe getting hit by a car. It was bizarre. It was about the snow and the high tops and the bar at the band and it was in defense of the people that were inside the house. And in my opinion, he should have laid out his case. And if he needed to call those people in rebuttal, he could have. But it was very weird. And I think there was a lot of spaghetti thrown at the wall. The jury was so confused. I think in his opening statement, he named something like 50 witnesses. And why? Here's the story. Like John O'Keefe was hit by a car. She left him there to die. She was drinking. He was drinking. They found him the next day. That's what we're going to prove. Thank you.
It's a simple case, right? And that was the other thing I would do as a prosecutor. And it's kind of translated into my work on television is you have to take whatever you think is this complicated layered thing, and you've got to make it simple for the jury. And Lally made everything, even simple questions, he made very complicated. I don't know why, but the prosecution case, you're right, is a very simple case. And the way it should be tried and should have been tried was Karen Reed was drinking. Karen Reed was behind the wheel. Karen Reed was in front of the house. John O'Keefe got out of there and Karen Reed drove off and hit him. And when she returned the next day, she was telling people that she hit him. Yeah. Right. And you're right. It's about the rebuttal case. If the defense then goes out there and tries to prove something else or something else comes up during the defense case, then you have your rebuttal case to rebut all of that and get
Mhm.
back to the core of your case. I think both sides, I did not, and I know there were some limitations on what they could do at trial, but I didn't feel like prosecutors proved that first count beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mhm.
But I don't think that, and I kind of landed where the jury seemingly landed, kind of stuck on count 2. And I don't think the defense proved the conspiracy. And I don't know if you could, if you inverted this case
Mhm.
and made Alan Jackson the prosecutor of everyone in that house, right? Could he prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't think so. I don't think
Right.
he could. And partially because it wasn't investigated that way, so the evidence doesn't exist. But it's difficult. And that's kind of the disadvantage that the defense has here in trying to go on the offensive, is that there were so many things that weren't investigated, so that evidence doesn't exist and is gone at this point, right?
Right.
So they couldn't prove it, but I don't think they did prove it in that first case. I think it's about whether or not she struck him, and I don't think anyone thinks it's on purpose. I mean, obviously the jury didn't, based on the evidence that we saw. And the question is there criminal liability or responsibility, or is it just an accident? Like, to me, that's what the case should have been from the beginning. She should never been charged with the top charge. It
Right.
should have been the second charge. And if it was the second charge, I think everything would have fallen much differently. And it all comes down to, did she do it on purpose? Did she not do it on purpose? Was she under the influence? Was she not under the influence? But the case became about anything but that.
Yeah.
And I am, that's what it should be. Did she strike him? Did she not strike him? And
Right.
no one-
Was John O'Keefe hit by a car? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you are done,
Period.
jury. Go home. You're done. That's it.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
my mind, there is no evidence that he was struck by a car. The body does not match.
And that's
There's
got
no
and that's-
injuries. There's no
right.
bumper marks. Vinny, you know about pedestrian accidents. You ever know anybody who's hit by a car? You ever see anybody who's got no injuries below the neck or below
No,
the waist?
and the problem was for prosecutors there's two parts of this. There's the sort of common sense approach to it.
Yep.
Right? Like drinking, driving, someone getting out of a car. Maybe there definitely is some fighting going on. Someone kind of speeds off and then something could happen and you don't know it, right? That's sort of the common sense part of it. Then you look at the experts, which are, all right, what do the experts say? The problem is the prosecution expert was not an expert.
Oh, Trooper Paul.
Nice guy.
Some
And I'm
comic
sure
relief there.
in most situations he'll be fine there. But this clearly was over his
Yeah.
it was over his head, because you needed the type of background that the people who testified for the prosecution had.
Right.
I mean, for the defense had, right? Like, these were guys who have studied this. Like, this is
what
in
they
their
do.
wheelhouse. This is their expertise. This was
Mhm.
not the trooper's expertise. Anything that he knew was just kind of like, oh, I look at it and it looks like this, it looks like that. That's not what we're talking about. You need to measure things. There needs to be more information about the car. There's a lot more that is necessary, and it wasn't there. So I thought this was the one case where a battle of the experts was actually won by someone. A lot of times it's a push, and then you revert to common sense.
Mhm.
Here, I think there was perhaps a split between common sense and some of the common sense people saying, yeah, she had to be driving. Like, come on, she hit him. Like, how else does he get there? Like, really? Like, is there any other reasonable explanation? Right. So that's the common sense one, versus the experts who said, well, it's not consistent with what I've ever seen with someone being struck by a car. So, that's what the case, the trial should be about. But again, as we line up, and if they had actually gone back and spoke to the jury, that's what we would end up with, right? We would just end up with that second count for the retrial. But it's not going to be that. It's going to be this big thing again, which is great for court TV. It's great for all of us on YouTube as well, and all of that. But I don't think it's great for the truth, because I think they're reaching for something that's not there, that's already been proven to be not there. The other thing that I didn't like about the prosecution is you have prosecutorial discretion. You can look at a case again and in the retrial decide, okay, we're going to pull back.
Right.
We're going to pull back. The jury, And you almost have I felt like you had an obligation to want to know what the jury said.
Right.
Like, okay, if I didn't prove it, I didn't prove it. But even not even knowing that, you can voluntarily go in and just dismiss it and
Of
just go
course.
for charge 2, which was the original charge anyway in the case when she was first arrested.
Right.
Um,
She didn't take a plea. They upgraded the charges to murder.
right.
And just so much of this case it just stinks. We're supposed to believe that the car reversed at 24 miles an hour, 60 feet in reverse, while all these people are curtain twitching. They're looking out the window because Jennifer McCabe and Matt McCabe are looking out the window the entire time. Nobody saw it. Nobody heard it. Nobody ever saw a body on the lawn, even though 12 people or 11 people left the house. A snowplow driver drove by. He didn't see a body on the lawn. We're supposed to believe, according to Trooper Paul, that the taillight only hit John O'Keefe's right arm, and somehow the taillight exploded into a million teeth shaped sharp pieces, scratched his arm like that, causing all of these laceration injuries to the right arm. And then he spun around, landed on the hard ground. They're now trying to get a weatherman to come in and say the ground was so hard that's what cracked his skull. Like they want a weatherman, the Commonwealth, an expert, to come in and talk about the hardness of the ground. Like this is how far we're reaching into the nether regions of like credulity. It's just
but they have the burden. They have the burden of proof, and they didn't prove it in the first trial. And the jury told them they didn't prove it. So I can see where they're going to attempt to come up with more experts and try to prove this case. And I think I generally, the battle of the experts, I always take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Okay, this one's paid by this side, this one's paid by the other side, right?
Right.
But this is a case where I need to hear it because common sense tells you that there's going to be more injuries to the victim who is struck by a vehicle.
Yeah,
like,
to the hips, legs, knees. You can't get
I
hit
don't
by
even
a
know
car
how
at 24 miles an hour.
I know he could be bent over. He could be like this. He could be like that. He could be all the way up. He could go like this. And I want a clearer explanation from the prosecution when I walk away from this case about the glass versus the tail light, where things were found. There was, to me, it wasn't a crystal clear picture that was painted by prosecutors because they got lost in the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
They got, your case in chief, right, which is what you put in initially just to prove what you're alleging, right? Not disproving what they're saying, but to prove what you're alleging. Should be very streamlined. It should be very direct. It should be very much to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't first time around.
There's no chain of custody logs. There's no evidence logs about when those pieces of taillight were found and what time they were found. The scene is left unsecured for 8 hours while another 2 feet of snow fell, because they either want you to believe that the Canton police are incompetent. They didn't find any red pieces of taillight during their extensive search. They found a couple of drops of blood. They put them in solo cups, which they coincidentally get from the across the street neighbor who happens to be something like the acting chief of Canton Police.
Right. Yeah, he's the chief.
The solo cups, the chain of cut, the clothing that was never entered into evidence. The wounds of John's arm were never swabbed for DNA. The text messages from Proctor to his fellow troopers where they're saying, what do you mean you couldn't get her to change the manner of death from undetermined to homicide? Rookie move. You should have let me do it. The horrific text messages from Proctor about Karen Reed and her medical conditions. This is a woman who has Crohn's disease, who has MS, who had not something like 9 surgeries to remove her entire colon. How does Proctor know all of this? And why is he texting her personal information to his buddies? The whole thing it was so gross. And it makes me, ashamed to be a lawyer. This is not what lawyering should be. This should be about finding the truth. Why are you trying to keep out the experts who are going to say that a car did not hit John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe was not hit by a car? Why do you want to keep out a medical doctor with decades of experience treating dog bite wounds who wants to come in and say that these are dog bites? Why are they trying to discredit or they want to keep out the forensic expert, Richard Green, who's going to say this 227 search happened? Why are they fighting getting the unredacted police reports on the Birchmore case, which happened 1 year prior to John O'Keefe's death, in which many of the same investigators were involved, who also screwed up the forensics in that case. And now that guy's on trial. He's in federal custody for murder of Sandra Birchmore. I don't know how much you know about that case, but it was quickly ruled a suicide because of Fanning, who was the lead investigator. It turns out she was pregnant with this police officer's baby. He had groomed her from her young years. And
yeah, she was a teenager. She was a teenager when that started.
And now they're saying we didn't know about any of the Sallyport video. We didn't know. We didn't have it. We're so sorry. We're not even sorry. But here's some more. We're going to keep giving it to you, including today, when there was the motion to dismiss is supposed to be argued tomorrow. Hank Brennan has not agreed to an adjournment of that motion either, even though he said we're now creating chain of custody logs. But the detective is retired, so he's got, I don't know if he had to give up his tea time. I don't know what happened. He's going to create the logs. We have no metadata. We didn't think it was important to take a picture of the taillight when we seized her car from her parents' house. Show me the evidence. There's just no evidence that he was hit by a car. That's how simple to me that this is. And the fact
that's what the entire case would be about if it was just the second count. And I think prosecutors would have much more credibility, because that's the other thing as a prosecutor, you want credibility in front of the jury. Like if you're reaching too far, right? And that first count, I think, is a reach too far. This wasn't, at best, it's, got struck by a car. Right?
It was an accident at best.
It was an accident. It was an accident, but perhaps an accident with criminal liability. And everybody was drinking and driving that night. I mean, to me, that's crazy. The snowstorm's coming in, so everyone's getting tanked in town and then getting behind the wheel. But, I don't want to stereotype folks, but Massachusetts has a little bit of a reputation, right? That the folks up there drink a little bit, which is, it's kind of the irony, right? That we're putting evidence in a solo cup in Massachusetts, right? It reminds me of the case Jason Williams, who was the basketball player for the New Jersey Nets. And it was a New Jersey case, and I'm from New Jersey. And in that case, the state troopers were putting evidence in pizza boxes. And I'm like, can we, I understand this is a New Jersey trial. These are my people. But why are we putting the evidence in pizza boxes? And then in Massachusetts, we're putting it in solo cups. It's just, it's funny.
But I mean, as a prosecutor, that when a brother in blue, when a police officer is murdered, everything stops. Not that the other cases are unimportant, but people come out of the woodwork. Everything stops. Everyone is on scene. Everyone is trying to find out what happened to a dead police officer.
So what impact do you think
happened in this case?
What impact, though, do you think the blizzard had on all of this? I think we have to acknowledge that changed the way this was investigated, because you've got to go out there in the middle of a blizzard to investigate all this. It wasn't a normal a crime scene. So I think
at 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. when they found the body, there was 2 inches of snow, Vinny. 2 inches of snow. There was 2 inches of snow. Okay?
But we've seen the response video. The snow is coming. What I'm saying is the way it's investigated, like it's. I guess it's just natural. It's like you put up a tent, right? But you're not able to investigate it the same way that you can investigate anything else, because it's the middle of a blizzard. And I think there should have been some more of an acknowledgement of that by the investigators, and say, well, yeah, it was a blizzard, so we should have done that, but we didn't do that. We should have done this. We should have done that. Like it's all anyone was thinking about that weekend, right? Even the folks who were out drinking that night, they knew they could drink because everything was going to be canceled that weekend. So like John knew that the kids' games were going to be canceled. So we're going to go out. We'll have fun. We'll have some good, fun downtown Canton. And then we know it's going to be a low key weekend because we're going to be snowed in. We'll shovel out the driveway. Exactly. But the investigation of all of this, and I'm looking at some of the comments that everyone's saying, yeah, the snow came later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came later. Like the investigation isn't over in 2 hours. Right. The investigation of a crime scene takes time. It takes time.
The original.
But if you're investigating it while the snow is coming down, there's a human element to this. Like I'm sure a lot of those guys didn't want to be out there in the middle of the blizzard looking for pieces of evidence. And you know what I mean? Like
that's what they do. That's their job. Come on.
I know it's their job. Their job, but that could be part of the criticism of them not doing their job.
No
I think perhaps
photos, no
this was not a
measurements.
normal crime scene. And I think a lot of people rushed through it and didn't do things because of the blizzard. And that is their fault. It was their obligation to do it. But, you know, in looking at it, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it that the crime scene was handled a certain way because they were framing someone for committing this, or you can look at it that a blizzard's coming on and people aren't doing their jobs. And people just aren't doing it because no one wants to be out there. Let's go. It's a hit and run, or it's whatever. Let's just wrap this up. Let's not do everything that we need to do until we need to do it. And then they realize much later on that they need. That's the second interpretation of it. That's something that prosecutors need to acknowledge in front of the jury. They need to acknowledge this was not a great invest. And usually you don't like to do that, but you have to. And you say, explain why all this happened the way it did, why these things weren't done. Well, the explanation would be this was not a normal scene because of the blizzard. I'm not saying what they did was right, but it's an explanation other than the scene wasn't done the way it normally is done because we had to frame someone for doing it. Right. So you need that. It may not be a winner. The jury may not like it, but maybe it's the truth. I don't know. You got to ask your witnesses if that's why you didn't put up crime scene tape. This is why you were gone, why no one secured it, right? You got to answer that stuff.
Yeah, well, another 18 inches of snow fell. And then the flip side to that is, it was the cop. It was the lawn of a Boston police officer whose brother is a Canton PD officer, who is family friends with Michael Lank, who is the first guy on scene who's been, getting himself involved in Albert business for decades. I mean, the twisted family roots of this case are so twisted, so deep. The tentacles are so deep that the personal connections between them, look the other way. Did they think she was going to take a plea? And when she didn't take a plea, they just said, all right, we gotta do something to turn the screws on her. Let's upgrade the charges to murder. He looked like he went 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. The guy had multiple skull fractures on both sides of his head, the front, brain bleeds, clearly looked like a fight. Something happened to John O'Keefe. And I think maybe this time the defense has to say, we don't know what happened to John O'Keefe, but we do know that he was hit by a car.
Yeah. And they don't know because it wasn't investigated that way, right? If this was investigated the way it should have been investigated, which includes an investigation not just of the lawn of the house, but the house itself, then you might have some of those answers. And that's where reasonable doubt lies for the defense in this case, is the lack of investigation. It becomes a much more traditional defense rather than we can prove what happened and who did it, because you can't because the way everything unfolded. And the traditional argument, which I usually make fun of, that defense attorneys make, is no crime scene is ever investigated properly. There's always all these mistakes, right? They always say that. Admit it, Melanie. They always say that.
Yeah.
There's never a good investigation. And I make fun of them for that. But in this case, it's actually true, right? Now the question is, why wasn't there a good investigation? Was it because it's a police officer's house and they're framing someone? Or is it because there's nasty weather and people aren't doing their jobs? I think you have to concede that if you want any chance of gaining some level of credibility, if that's the truth. And I would bring it out from my own witnesses. I would say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Because the defense is going to do it anyway. And they can explain, well, be honest, why? It was snowing, it was really cold, and I didn't want to be out there. Or, it's a cop's house. We wanted to clean everything up really quickly, so there wasn't crime scene tape in front of the. Okay, but it's what? I just want the truth, and if the truth hurts me, it hurts me. But that's your job as a prosecutor. It's not to suppress evidence. It's not to suppress facts, but to bring them out and flush them out in front of the jury. And hey, sometimes you lose. And sometimes you lose a case that maybe you don't think you should lose. Sometimes you lose a case where you think the person actually did it. Sometimes you lose a case where the person actually did do it. But that's the way the system was created.
Isn't it better that one guilty person go free than an innocent woman?
Yeah, It's a
is in
cliche, but
prison
that's
for
how it
20
works.
years when there's really no evidence. This Karen Reed has lost her job. She is $5 million in debt for legal fees. She has sold her house. She has liquidated her 401ks. She can't drive because of her bail conditions. They have her car for 3 years. And now she's got to go through all of this again because a judge decided it was not important enough to call the jury back to ask them whether or not they really acquitted her on 2 out of the 3 counts. And it's not looking for the truth. It's looking for a conviction. And the way that Hank Brennan is coming into this now is dirty. Okay. Alan Jackson did not do anything, in my opinion, ethically egregious enough to get him thrown off this case. She's got the right to counsel of her choice. He's not a public defender. And we have the 6th Amendment, and she's entitled to the counsel of her choice. If the judge does choose to remove him, I think she's got a great chance on appeal. But I think they've been looking to get rid of Alan Jackson from the beginning. Her disdain for him is obvious, right?
Yes. And what's interesting is, like, give him the same punishment that prosecutors got for not providing what the defense believes is exculpatory evidence. Don't give him the same punishment that Lally and the defense got for the inverted video. None of them got kicked off the case, so just let it go on. You want to give him a tongue lashing? I don't know what you want. Whatever you want to do, just it's got to be even, because both sides, there are problems, and there are problems with Alan Jackson's thing, and as good as the argument was of their attorney, Alessi, it was. I could tell that he was a little bit defensive, right? Because he kind of knew that there were some problems. It was not crystal clean for Alan Jackson at all, and it's a problem. But the question is, what should the ramifications be? And you don't punish a defendant for something that a lawyer did, and you don't punish one set of lawyers more harshly than a set of the other lawyers for arguably even problems. But I would argue that the inverted video, to me, was a bigger problem. Like, if the defense didn't catch it, like, are you kidding me? Like, the jury would have gone into the jury room with that, and that would have been an injustice. And it turned out to be a moment for the defense, but it was a problem. It doesn't erase the fact that it happened.
You can't unring that bell.
Prediction?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true and accurate. That's exactly what it looked like. Only everything was the exact opposite of what I just showed you. Like, the opposite. Left is right, right is left. It matters in this case.
It's the murder weapon, allegedly, right?
Yeah.
Just quick, because I know you have to go. What do you think, as a prosecutor, of Hank Brennan getting up there in open court and blatantly accusing Alan Jackson of things that were factually incorrect? The way that he said that we had to get all of this information from the feds and waving these papers around. He didn't give them to us. He didn't give them to us. The judge abruptly cut short that hearing. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. She took a half an hour timeout. She came back. She was visibly shaken. He gets up and doesn't say, "Your Honor, I need to correct the record." He says, "Oh, I gotta, just talk about the chronology." Buries the lead in there, says, "We really did get this from the defense." And is also, accusing Mark Betterow, who's now trying to come in pro hoc vice on this case, of also ethical violations. Like, what are the standards as a prosecutor? Would you get up and blatantly lie like that in open court in front of a worldwide audience?
No.
And if you did misspeak, wouldn't you get up and correct the record and fall on your mea culpa a little bit?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it was, for us covering it on television, it was like, wait, what did he just say? And like, you would miss it because of all the blah, 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 blah off the top. And it was like, oh yeah, by the way, it was the defense that gave me all the information.
Yeah.
That's a problem. He corrected it, but that just goes to show, right? So he has some misinformation. Alan Jackson in the sidebar. Is that a wash, right? Like, come on. Like, some goose gander arguments here. Like, it to me, I don't understand it. And what I try to do on my show and when I'm streaming on YouTube as well is because having been there, take people behind, like inside the robe or behind the scenes of what's really, really happening in a case. And the one thing that we know, and if you practice in a courthouse, right? And I practice in a courthouse in New Jersey, every judge has a reputation. My father was a judge. He had a reputation.
Wow.
My father was a federal judge. So all judges have reputations by the local attorneys. And oh, this one, I'm never going to win this motion in front of this judge, or this judge is going to do that. We knew in our courthouse there was one judge where the defense will never win a motion. So your argument was always 2 sentences, right? And you let the defense go on and on because you knew he's going to rule your way. There was another one who was the opposite, who you really had to fight. So people know the judge's reputation here, right? Like, and it's not that they're bad people. It's just judges are humans also, and they come from a certain perspective and the way they see things and their level of skepticism one way or the other, and everyone knows that reputation, which is one thing I try to ask local lawyers when I bring them on the air, but they're not going to say it because then they're saying on TV what the judge's reputation is, and they're going to have to appear in front of that judge.
Right.
So it's hard to find out sometimes what their reputation is, but they have a reputation and they make rulings leaning one way or the other way. Like, it's rare that you have one that is like, I have no idea what the judge is going to do here. We kind of know. And the judges know what they're going to say. Like, my favorite part was on sentencing day, we would make all these arguments and I'd go in front of one judge and I'd have, 20 sentencings, and I'd make the arguments, and the judge would listen to me and listen to defense counsel, and then would pick up a piece of paper and then read the sentence. And I'm like, and I learned as a young lawyer, like, why am I even making these arguments? Right. The judge already wrote out exactly what she's going to do. She's
already made up her mind.
Right. So I said, I'll just practice my oratory skills. So I did it. But then, thank you, counselor. Thank you, counselor. And then go down and literally read what was written by either themselves or their law clerk, the day before. It was funny.
Did you ever want to be an actor? A performer of any kind? Because this is
everyone in television news wanted to be an actor. That's all we are.
I always wanted.
We're actors that wanted steady paychecks.
That's right. That is
right.
I
did study acting my senior year of college.
You what?
My senior year of college, I took some acting classes.
Oh, you did.
And I learned this: acting is reacting.
Yes.
So you've got to listen. So I've taken that into broadcasting, and there are people, and I've appeared on, Today's Show, Good Morning America, all these other shows. And I was shocked when this was years ago, as a young correspondent at Court TV, and I would be on the set of the Today Show. And I'm not going to say who it was, but it wasn't Matt Lauer. And they're asking me about a case, and they are not listening to my answers. Like, the questions, they're just reading them from a teleprompter, and they're not listening to anything I'm saying. And I'm shocked.
So they can't follow up.
I'm telling them the answer, and I can even see that they're not even looking at me. They're like looking at the sheet or whatever. Like, what am I doing next? When am I getting out of here? So on my shows, what I do is I listen to every answer.
Right.
Every single answer, because I want to react to what they're saying. That's what it is. But no,
and you're really good at pivoting. You're really good at pivoting. You're not working off a prompter, are you? Are you working out of your head when you do your show?
What I put in the teleprompter is the guest intros, because I don't want to get anything wrong with the guest intros, like whether it's the name of their book, their website, their name, anything. I want to get that right. So the guest intros are all scripted. So if I ever mess that up, I'm just reading, right? Because I'm relying on the producers to get all the information that the guest wants and that we want to put up there to who they are. That's it. What I do on my Vinnie Politan Investigates, the intro and outro, because that second show I have, the timing is extremely important of that show, because we have what's called hard outs. We have to be out at certain times for each segment of it. So I write a scripted intro and I write a scripted outro. So I do read those, but I'm reading the words that I wrote.
So you write your own stuff. You don't have somebody writing. You don't have a writer.
I learned a long time. Well, here's the thing, the little secret about television, and I've done local news and court TV. is that if you're reading scripts, you're reading what's written by someone they could be brilliant, but they're going to be usually 28, 29 years old. If you're in local news, they could be 24. If you're lucky at a national network like Court TV, it's someone who's more experienced. But at Court TV, I'm like, why would I have anyone write a script for me? The reason I'm at Court TV is because of my experience and number one, having practiced law, but number two, now over the course of decades, covered the highest profile trials. And the producers at Court TV, there's a few that have a legal background, very few these days. So why would I read their words? Their words, I want them to find me great sound bites. I want them to find great guests. I want them to, help structure the program, that the show, so it kind of makes sense. And we discuss together the approach to the subject matter, what the questions are, where we should go. We have a big meeting every day to kind of determine that. And that's teamwork, because, I've got to be actively involved, obviously, but the producers as well have to have investment in the show. And, there are some anchors that don't want to hear ideas from anyone. I want to hear ideas from everyone.
More collaborative of a show.
Our meeting is wide open. We have people like the person who's in charge of hitting the button if someone curses. They're in on our meeting, and everyone can have input, because the stories and the cases that we're covering at Court TV, everyone gets into them. Like there's an investment, which is why I love working at Court TV, because the people if you're not into it, you can't survive because of the goriness and the depression of some of the stories. Like it's a lot of people who've lost their lives in horrific ways, but there's a way to approach it and a way to look at it. Like, are we uncovering a mystery? Are we searching for justice? Are we giving a voice to a victim? All of that becomes sort of the reason for doing a lot of the different stories. And the people who I work with, the staff, which is a streamlined staff, but really work hard and they're really good. They really are invested in the stories and the people, which makes it great, which means our approach to covering this stuff becomes much better because everyone has their input. And then one day we might have a show all set, and then someone says, yeah, but, and they might be like a little timid, the story down in Florida, probably, right? And then we're like, oh my goodness, that's right. Oh, I forgot that's happening today. And then all of a sudden we're rearranging the show.
Right.
So that's a little bit behind the scenes of what we're doing, but that's why I love it. And that's a long answer to the question that no, it is unscripted, true crime, 2 hours every night on television.
And so you're on Court TV every night from 8 to 10. You can tell people where to find you. So it's obvious that you're so passionate about what you do. Being an employee of Court TV, essentially, do you have certain guardrails on how far you're allowed to go on a certain side of an issue or a case, or your opinions? I mean, are you sort of not allowed to go outside the bounds of, does Court TV put any restrictions on you about what you're allowed to say or how far you're allowed to take a side, or you have complete autonomy?
Not at all. Not at all. And that's beautiful. That's the other thing I love about Court TV is we're not micromanaged. But the guardrails are my own guardrails.
Right.
I mean, any argument I make is based upon, and again, I'm very transparent about this, based upon my view of the world, which is that prosecutor filter, number one, and number two, the way I see the evidence and what I'm convinced of. And I'll if I believe something, I tell you why I believe it. Right. And in the case with the whole jury drama afterwards, I said I understand what the law of Massachusetts is, and I disagree with it. I think this is the time, this is the moment to create another exception for when we should have some curiosity about what happened in the jury room. And then the biggest criticism I have is with our system and the way we don't explain things to jurors.
Yeah.
And when a judge doesn't do it, I get a little upset, but I say, I understand the judge is following the rules or the laws of that land, but it doesn't help us get to, which is my one goal for all these cases, which is the truth. And most of the time on court
Injustice.
TV, the truth is the person who's at that defense table did it.
Right.
That's just the facts. That's just the numbers. That's just the statistics. But it's not everyone. It's not everyone. So
right.
there we
Right.
go.
I just need to tell you, I need to confess something to you that you might not know about, is that you and I have been in this ongoing secret competition that really, I was in this secret competition with you to see that if I could beat you on YouTube subscribers. And so we were like 10,000 apart for a really long time. And I was like telling everyone, subscribe, because I got to beat Vinnie. And so I want to congratulate you on your 100,000 subscribers. You got the play button before I did. And I know, I'm so jelly. But you know what? Look, you've got a lot broader audience than I do. And congratulations. So I knew the cat was going to.
What are you at? What's your number?
I don't know, like 77.7. Like we're getting there. I've only been doing it for a year and a half. So
it's a whole different feeling. Like you stand a little taller. It's like, wow.
Have you won an Emmy? So this is your Emmy. You have an Emmy.
Yeah, but I should put it back there. I don't have it back there. I have my telly back there, but not my Emmy.
Why do you not have an Emmy back there? If I had an Emmy, I'd be carrying it around with me everywhere.
Yeah. You wear it around my neck, maybe if you get a chain.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
And that's why you do it, right? This is why you do it. You do it for the hardware.
Look, the reason that I do this is because I cannot shut up when I feel like there's injustice going on. I cannot. I've been this way since I was a child, much to my parents' chagrin. I was always very outspoken. I was always out there, yelling for the people with no voice. I prosecuted. It was a civil case. I was the plaintiff's attorney for 50 or 60 victims of clergy sex abuse on Long Island when the Catholic Church scandal broke in 2002. I was very passionate about that. I grew up, I went to Catholic school. I am Catholic. It was very personal to me. And I've always been a voice for people who haven't had a chance to really speak for themselves. And so I don't cover cases unless I'm very passionate about them. And I've said Karen Reed could be you or me or your sister, my sister, your daughter, your wife. If this can happen to Karen Reed, it can happen to anyone. They don't have the evidence to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. I think the jury needs to understand what reasonable doubt is, because I think that is a concept that, despite the fact that we think it's obvious, right? You've served on a jury. So you know what goes on inside of a jury room. I never get picked, so I don't know what goes on, but that must have been an incredible experience for you.
Oh, it was a great experience. But it was a civil case.
Right.
But the thing with reasonable doubt is there's two ways to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You either prove it, like the defense says, they've got to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And then a prosecutor says, beyond a reasonable doubt. It's got to be reasonable.
That's right.
So it's the same phrase.
But listen, if you're back in the jury room thinking about other ways that this could have happened to John O'Keefe, that in and of itself is reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And
that's the job of the lawyers. And
right.
you know who did a really good job with the reasonable doubt? And I've seen it in a lot of cases where they bring out that big chart with the definitions of reasonable doubt. Have you seen this? It was actually done in
graphics are good. I like graphics.
In the Kaylee Marie Anthony case. I don't like to say the name of the defendant, but her daughter was the victim down in Florida. And that defense team had the classic, reasonable doubt. And they did a real nice job with it. They've done it before. It's not like it was the first time. But for a jury, it's the first time. Oh, okay, now I understand reasonable doubt. And I think defense attorneys, if they do a good job of explaining that and trying to own that issue, they have a much better chance of winning. But prosecutors have to address it. And I used to go beyond a reasonable doubt. So is it really reasonable to think X, Y, and Z? Is that reasonable? The other thing a prosecutor has to lean on when it comes to reasonable doubt is we don't have to prove everything beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have to prove every fact beyond a reasonable doubt, only the elements of the crime, and then bring them to the elements of the crime. As a prosecutor, you have to give them the roadmap to conviction. And you've got to make it a simple roadmap, and you've got to give them those little nuggets that the jurors who are on your side can use as ammo against the other jurors when they're debating it. That's to me, that's the key of being an effective prosecutor. And I see it a lot on court TV, but not all the time.
One of the issues here is they only had an hour for closings. And I think that for a 10-week trial, I do not think that that was anywhere near enough time. We've seen cases that are far shorter where
Again.
attorneys are given 3 hours for closing. I mean, it wasn't enough
I've seen
time.
cases where there is no time limit. It's up to the
Yes.
lawyers. Like like you see what happens out in California. They do stuff over the course of days. It was crazy. The Durst trial was insanity. Opening statements were like a week, and then we waited a year and a half, and then we started the evidence in the case. It was nuts.
Well, I think I don't know if you have to go, but I did see one question fly by, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. Do you believe that Karen Reed is innocent?
Innocent, like factually innocent.
Yes.
Of the top charge?
Do you believe that John O'Keefe was hit by a car? This is because this is what it boils down to. Do you believe that John O'Keefe was hit by a car?
Like my common sense tells me yes, that he was. I don't believe the conspiracy's been proven. My common sense though, has it been proven though? It hasn't been proven. Like the problem I have is the injuries. You know, I am not caught up as much on the conspiracy part because, like I said, it was investigated in such a way that you're not going to be able to prove it to me. What you can prove to me is a really bad investigation. And then the expert testimony. I found, and I told everyone online that the battle of the experts was won by the defense in the first trial.
Mm-hmm.
So believing someone's factually innocent versus could I find her guilty if I was on the jury are two different questions.
What leads you to believe that he was hit by a car?
Common sense. Drinking, driving.
Because two people were there and one is dead, and
yeah. And
well, that's the way. That's unfortunate
driving.
Because that's what the jury thought too. Like two people were there, one of them is dead.
I'm debating the same thing the jury was debating. By the way, I'm like in the same camp that they are. They were just trying to figure out whether or not he got hit. They knew that the top count was no good. They knew that she didn't leave the scene of the accident on purpose, and all of that. What they were trying to figure out was whether or not she accidentally hit him or not.
What his blood alcohol content on autopsy was 0.28. Did you know that?
Yeah. I mean, everyone.
So what if he got out of the car? What if he got out of the car? She drove away. He slipped and fell and cracked his head on the fire hydrant that was back there. That to me is more reasonable than him getting hit by a car because of these injuries to his arm and then no injuries where the car hit him. And there's no fractures. His arm wasn't even broken.
No, here to me, the test. And again, when I'm talking about common sense, I'm talking about, okay, so the first time you hear the headline in this case, I have 5 minutes left because I do have something to do. But the first time you hear this case, I heard like, the headline in one of our meetings, people were talking about this case. I don't know if it was an email or whatever. Oh, I said, okay, officer dead, the woman's arrested. Somebody was drinking and driving. Then I found out
there was ring camera footage of her hitting him with his car, by the way, just to point that out.
So,
and there wasn't.
So that was the common sense thing that told me, okay, there's drinking, there's driving, someone got hit by a car, right? Didn't know anything about all this other stuff that gets dug up. But then we continue to cover it. Then it changes into a much more serious case after she's indicted. Then we're taking a much closer look at everything. And then obviously we wait till we get to the trial and we see the actual evidence. Was this case proven beyond a reasonable doubt? No, because they lost the battle of the experts. It was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Is she factually innocent? I don't know. My gut tells me, well, here's the other thing. Is there a way that she's not guilty even if the car strikes John O'Keefe?
Because the injuries to him would not have killed him.
Is there a way that
you're saying
that she doesn't have criminal liability? That it's just a car accident that she didn't know.
But here's the other thing: there was never a car accident report filed. In a fatality in New York, it's the law. The police would do a motor vehicle accident report, a crash report. It's never been done. If they thought this was a motor vehicle homicide, they would have to file a motor vehicle accident report with the DMV or whatever they call it in Massachusetts. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
Something happened to John O'Keefe. Something happened. And this would be my opening. Something happened to John O'Keefe. We don't know what it is. We don't know what happened. We don't know if he went inside of the house. We don't know if something happened outside of the house. Something happened, but the evidence shows that he was not hit by a car. Those broken taillight pieces, you know, they were found after the car was seized. Like, I don't even, like, that's what people point to as the evidence that he was hit by a car. But there needs to be some sort of marks on his body that show an impact between a motor vehicle and his body. And I just don't.
And it's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Right. Like that she struck, and that was not demonstrated. And to me, this again comes back to, this case should be about that. This case should be about what information do we have from the car? You know, does the car have any sort of information on it that would prove that it was going backwards at a certain rate of speed? Like, none of this evidence was demonstrated beyond a reasonable doubt at the trial, and that is extremely problematic. You get to factual innocence, it's difficult to have, you know, you can kind of, your gut can tell you one thing, but I can't prove, and there's a reason why you don't have to prove your innocence, because it's almost impossible to prove your innocence unless you have like an alibi with a video and everything else. All right, I wasn't there, I couldn't have done it. Okay, you proved your innocence. But in this scenario, how do you even prove your innocence? You can't.
Somebody else is Googling Haas long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. You know, you've got butt dials to each other. We've got new video of Higgins walking out of the police station, talking on the phone. Like, there's just so
that's all reasonable doubt. That's reasonable doubt. Okay, like, proving your innocence is a burden that no criminal defendant has.
Right.
Right. Do you think, based upon the evidence that we have now, because again, the investigation that was done, none of the people who the defense believes is responsible here were investigated. Right. They were lightly investigated by the feds, but not really. None of them were investigated. So you're not going to have the evidence. Based on this evidence, there's no way that you could prove that these other people did it beyond a reasonable doubt. And to me, that's how you would prove that you're innocent. So you can't prove your innocence in this case, because there is nothing that says beyond a reasonable doubt that she is innocent. There is doubt that she didn't do what she's accused of doing. And
I think the common sense is, no, he was not hit by a car. So when you say common sense, I'm on the other side of common sense. He was not hit by a car.
Right. Well,
something else happened.
And
she shouldn't have to prove who did it. That's not her job. They
right.
Prove that
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. And you can't, in this case, you can't prove who did it, because they were never investigated and all that evidence is gone. There is enough to demonstrate, wait a minute, is there some doubt here about what these people were doing? And are these people not telling me the truth on the witness stand? And should I trust anything that they say? And that's a problem. If your witnesses for your case as a prosecutor are not being 100% truthful about everything, you're not going to win the case. You're not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what actually happened. If your witnesses get up there and are not truthful about everything, the jury is going to be like, why should I trust you? And they shouldn't. Every witness should get up there and tell the truth. That's what the oath is. And prosecutor, you put your people up there. You put everybody up there. You let the evidence speak for itself. And the evidence should. And if it doesn't, then the person is found not guilty.
Well, in the
people
case
aren't
of
found
Paul,
innocent. People aren't found innocent. So that question to me is an important question. If someone's being wrongfully convicted, if they're factually innocent, but to try to prove that is tough. My gut and the way I looked at this case from the beginning was a drinking and driving case from the beginning. And, you know, there's a prejudice that I have in my mind when it comes to drinking and driving, because it makes me really angry, because my perception of that goes back to me as being a child. And I know that a neighbor of mine, actually 3 kids, and one of them was a neighbor of mine that died in a drunk driving accident. And at that moment in my life, there's a thing in my head where I look at drunk driving as attempted manslaughter. You know, even if there's no accident, like you make
that's
the choice
problem,
to drink,
because they also didn't prove that she was drunk.
Right. Well, she was.
That extrapolation evidence was junk, and also was she drinking that night? The only receipt that they have that they produced at trial was a receipt for 2 Tito's and a beer.
Let's. Was she drinking? She went.
She said she was drinking. She said she was drinking, and
okay, so she was drinking and driving. I'm
Right,
not
but
saying
that-
she's. I don't know what level of drunk, but she's drinking and driving. I told you my prejudice when it comes to drinking.
yeah,
and
and
it is what
all
it is.
jurors come into a jury room. They can't leave their
That's what I. That's what I
personal
have.
experiences right at the door.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave you with this because I do have to leave. I have a call coming up. But it was great being on the program. Got to get you to 100K. Number one.
Thank you.
Number two, and this case needs to be tried in the courtroom. Prosecutors need to put the evidence on. Prosecutors have the burden, and they've got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. What actually happened that night? The people in the house know. Karen Reed knows. Karen Reed didn't testify. The people in the house did testify. Do you believe the people in the house? Did you trust everything they were saying? Right? And I'll leave you with that.
Tell them the guy never went in the house.
Yeah.
We're going to learn that. We're going to learn more tomorrow. Don't text about it. And then she goes to the police. Then she goes to Lang's house and she's caught in the just one thing. In New Jersey, did the defense have to turn over their impeachment evidence to you before your witnesses testified on direct? That's wild to me. It's wild.
No, they did not.
Give us your smoking gun so we can therefore take away your smoking gun. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for coming on the show. Everyone go follow Vinnie.
And by the way, the comments, amazing. I'm in the corner of my eye, I'm seeing the chat things go by. Some great points being made by everybody. And it's great. Like, it's a trial. We're like, by its nature, our system is built that not everyone's going to agree about everything. And I think people in this case are very dug in, much like people in our country are dug in on their politics. I would just say, have a little bit of an open mind from both sides about addressing some of these facts. You may have to concede some things that don't go your way. And I think that's part of the problem here. And people are turning everything into a personal attack. And I know locally, some things actually did get personable.
Yeah.
Right. But in the chat rooms, like, have a good, vigorous debate.
Well, we've had almost 8,000 people here the whole time. And the people in this chat anyway know the facts of this. I mean, we've been following it. They know every single detail of everything. So that's why it's hard to cover this case if you don't know a lot about it. And granted, you can't know every single fact about every single case that you're covering. So
the lawyers don't know every fact about this case. So let's
right. So I think that the big mishigas. It's a big mishigas. We're fighting, for justice for Karen Reed, because I don't think that John O'Keefe was hit by a car. He just wasn't. Something happened to him. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to accuse anybody else of beating the bejesus out of him. Yep. But the injuries that he sustained to his brain and his skull did not come from getting hit by a car. I don't care how hard the ground was. Like, that just doesn't happen like that, in my opinion. Of course.
All right. And you're invited to come join us when we go up there. Come on set. We'll have the live studio audience ready to go.
Are you going to do it again? You're going to do it again?
Yeah, we're going up.
Are you going to go to the waterfall and take a high top and do it from there? You kind of have to.
Well, we had lunch at the waterfall.
Away.
We had lunch at the waterfall, and some people said they knew, and we heard some people behind us. So we said, hey, they knew a lot, but they refused to say anything, which is very common.
I don't know, Vinnie. I mean, you say that I can see that you've changed your take on this case since we spoke about it a year ago. I can tell. You don't have to say it, but I just know.
I am what I am. I see what I see. I say what I say. Rich lost confidence in Vinnie.
Nah,
Richie, come on, Richie,
gets
baby.
it. Vinnie, I saw you ranting the other day with Al, and that wasn't just for show.
No, it's not for show. Al was wrong. Sometimes he's wrong. I got to set him straight.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Here. Ciao, ciao. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of your questions, but we have. Hopefully, maybe we can get them to come back another day and answer some of your questions. But we have a lot of new filings. So if you would like, we can go over all of these new filings. We've got a lot. Hold on. So much is going to happen today and this week. Before we go to the new filings, you guys, I'm sure do want to go to the new filings. Yeah. Hold on. I think I'm a little bit behind on my own stream. Yes. Yes, we want the new filings. Let's at least just go to the chat. Thank you, Megan, for becoming a member. MPH and stuff. Thank you, Kale, for your super chat. Lady Libra became a new member. Welcome. Lady Justice wants to know, why is the Norfolk DA representing Bev in the habeas corpus case? Isn't that a conflict? Andrea and I talked about that last night. That was Andrea's feeling. You can go back and watch that stream. If you didn't see that, I had Andrea Burkhart on last night, and we did a couple of hours talking about the Karen Reed case. And Andrea's been in Chile for the past 2 months, so she's back. She's ready to go. It may be a conflict. It's very strange. Caleb Schillender, it seems to be the attorney of record on the habeas appeal, and he also argued the appeal in the SJC for the Commonwealth, but in the petition, the habeas petition, Norfolk Superior Court is the defendant, as is the U.S. Attorney's Office. So it's a little bit crazy. Thanks for your super sticker on top. I appreciate you. Happy 27th birthday to New Hampshire woman's son, Zach. Thank you very much for that. Meatball Marcy. Hi, Melanie. Vinny, why do you think no one in mainstream media is asking the hard-hitting questions to the Commonwealth, like, why'd you hire a special prosecutor when you have 50 ADAs already being paid? Great question. Sorry we couldn't get to it. Thank you so much for your super chat. We'll keep that in mind for next time. Thank you. Kay Willis is here. She's gifting 5 memberships. Anybody who wants to sell their house in the south of Boston area, give Kay Willis a call. Chloe Albert's Revenge. Thanks for the 10. I find the term cop killer highly prejudicial. I agree with you. He wasn't killed for being a cop, and the state went out of their way to suppress any law enforcement support for his side. Right. He was killed and happens to be a cop. Yes. And also law enforcement were told by Judge Cannoni that they were not allowed to wear their uniforms in the courtroom. Happy Warrior. Feelings on the officer assigned to oversee the jury who happens to be the boss of a witness for the prosecution. Hank Brennan is denying that in his opposition. He flat out denied it, said Fanning never went inside the courthouse, never had any contact with the jury, and yet he does not attach an affidavit from Fanning. So that, in my opinion, is going to be, if it's true, a huge problem, a huge conflict of interest, because he was Proctor's boss. I don't care if he was on a witness list. Well, most of those witnesses were witless, so that does kind of track. I think it's a huge problem. I think there's got to be a hearing on it. I don't know what the judge is going to do, but that is brought up in the defense motion to dismiss, which is supposed to be argued tomorrow. I haven't had a chance to look at the filings that were sent to me. They're in my inbox. We're going to go there next. Saddle up Vicky Sue. Massachusetts, could they have a petition to the court for a new judge? No, it's not up to the public whether or not the judge is removed, unfortunately. Jeremy and petitioned and finally got a new judge. No, that's not the way it works. You can make a motion for the judge to recuse herself. They did that before the first trial. I went over that decision again recently. She did not want to recuse herself, and so she didn't. But a public petition, like a change.org petition to remove a judge, that's not a thing. Southie Bartender, thank you. I'd love to hear Vinny's opinions on the judge. I think we heard some of that. Albert, Bev said oh yes, if they didn't fill in the jury slipped, it meant not guilty on the jury form. But when it came back that way, it was deemed not filled out. Exactly what I was worried about. I think they did change the jury forms to have a not guilty box. So that was rectified, allegedly. So that should have solved the issue. But again, I've never seen the final verdict form, so I don't know. Did I bite him? Yeah, I bit him. It says, in re sendent court, broad allegations of harm, bereft of specific examples or articulated reasoning are insufficient. Much love to you both. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Skybell, for your super sticker. Thanks to Michelle RN for gifting 5 memberships. You're so generous. Melanie and Vinny, this is awesome. Love you both. Thank you so much. Michelle, who also gifted 5 memberships. Same Michelle. Thank you. What about Bev's hot mic moment where she says she didn't correct the verdict slips? I don't know about that. I can't opine on that. So I'm not sure. I mean, I heard somebody say it. I don't know if it was her. And I know there's some speculation out there, Cindy. I don't know enough about it to comment one way or the other, but thanks for your super chat. Shari says the prosecutor's role is to assist the jury in discovering the truth, not merely to secure a conviction. Commonwealth v. Keogh. Thank you very much. And that's Vinny's platform. That's what he runs on. Like, we need to find the truth, not just get a conviction. Karen versus Goliath says objective evidence, metadata, extractions, physics, injuries. There's the fair trial Brennan wants and Karen deserves. And go. I agree. Thank you, Coach Mo, for coming in. Appreciate you always. Chloe Albert's revenge. Trooper Paul's expertise is creating carbon dioxide. Wait, I'm an expert at that too. I could have testified. Well done. Abacus Flinch, thanks for the 10. Could the defense use Bev's request for the metadata of their picture showing one of the paramedics, knowing one of the McAlberts, proving its importance for authenticating the Sallyport video? Yes, they've used a lot of her own rulings against her, or tried to. And that did happen. You're right. The photos of Caitlin Albert and first name escapes me, Katie McLaughlin, the EMT. They didn't allow she didn't allow those videos in, right? Because there was no metadata. Great point. Thanks for the super chat. Coach Mo, the law that holds the tapestry of the judicial system in Massachusetts is coming apart at the seams. The level of bias and corruption in this entire case is at a level that is beyond stunning. Well, thank you so much, Coach Mo. Nolene Arca testified that the ground wasn't hard enough to crack a skull. It is to be a consistent temperature for a long period. Great point. We went over the motion the other day that Bob Alessi filed to keep that expert out, to keep the portion of the Commonwealth's proposed expert weatherman, that portion out about the hardness of the ground. Thank you on top for your super sticker. Alessi man couldn't handle it. Could it be that Lally didn't realize the video was inverted when he first put it up? I call BS on that. I noticed during the break when they dismissed the jury, he followed Buchanan out. Maybe they talked about it then. No, there's no way in hell that Lally put that video up cold and hadn't looked at it before. It was obvious that things were written backwards in the video, in my opinion. No, in my opinion. Let's see if he gets on the stand, if there's an evidentiary hearing, and let's see under oath what he testifies about knowing about that inverted video, which was a Shonda, a fraud on the court. Jamie, Vinny's opinion on the judge. Does he believe Karen hit John? Thank you. We got into that. Thank you, Jamie, for your super chat. Parachutes and pirouettes. Vinny's 2 questions. What do you think will happen with the federal motion? I got the impression that he doesn't know that much about it. We talked about it before the show, and so I didn't want to give him, have him talk about things that he wasn't fully briefed on. And do you think the FBI will dump more information? I don't know if they will. I don't know if the investigation is really over. Maybe they will. We'll see. If there's another dump before this next trial is scheduled to start April 1st. So it's hot water boys here. Hilarious. Prosecution would have to outright lie for a guilty verdict. Well, apparently there's been some outright lies told recently by Mr. Brennan in open court. Kind of corrected it, but not really. Retired detective file. Vinny's correct. It was not a normal crime scene. No, there was nothing normal about it. But look, I've had Ed Wallace on the show from Duty Ron's show. And Ed Wallace, he's a forensics expert. And he told us how to conduct a crime scene, how to investigate a crime scene in the snow. There are ways. There are things like tents that are put up and sifters that are brought in to sift through the snow. You don't use a leaf blower. It's not the first time there's ever been a crime scene in a blizzard. And you don't leave it unattended either. Thank you. Says, love you, Vinny and Mel. Vinny, if the weather was too rough for New England officers, why didn't they at the very least move the investigation inside Brian Albert's house where it was nice and warm? But they also had to investigate outside. But I hear what you're saying. Like as a home base, yeah, an officer died outside his home. You don't have to tell me. I get it. Parachutes and pirouettes. Do you think Karen will finally get the Alberts carpet tested for DNA? I don't know that it would even be admissible at this point. I don't know anything about the chain of custody on that. I don't know. I don't know where the carpet came from, like what part of the house it was in. I don't know that it would be fruitful. It's expensive. Thank you so much. Skybell says, let's get Karen Reed free. Retired detective file, not normal because the crime scene was at 34 Fairview. I realize I'm preaching to the choir, but I haven't sent a super chat in a while. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Nick is here. Hey, Vinny, great work on your Delphi coverage. Thank you, Nick. Hopefully you'll see that later. Script to acquit. Commonwealth can't prove the case is why they want to eliminate Karen Reed defense, which is the truth, right? They don't want the truth. They want the conviction. You know that. I know that. The world is watching and they know that too. And says, it seems to me like the goal of the Commonwealth is to conflate paying for the expert report versus paying for them to testify. They want to confuse those two things. Yes, exactly. The defense did not hire ARCA to do the investigation, the reconstruction. They didn't hire them for anything. They happened to pay them after the fact for their reviewing of their file, their travel, meals, hotel, to come to Boston twice. I agree. Gem Girl, why don't they file a complaint with the Judicial Oversight Committee? I don't know who would do that. Gem Girl, thank you for your super chat. I don't know what the defense is doing behind the scenes. I don't have an inside track. Lola the Good Dog, thanks for the 10. 2 great legal minds, 1 awesome live stream. The most difficult part about being a juror should not be the instructions and forms. Why can't jury forms be digital, similar to how we vote in elections? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Pen and paper. It's the way they do it. It's just the way they do it. Karen, Vinny, how would you handle the lack of logs and informations and reports? 22 years CO and was taught without those. Didn't happen. Right. If you didn't write it down, it's on the report. It didn't happen. Emma is here. She's from Ireland and she's wishing the shenanigans don't carry on this week, but she's not hopeful. Thank you, Emma. Hello from your mods, Vinny. Oh, Ash, Jen, FF, and Gen X. Thanks, Ashley Bouchard, for coming in with the super chat. I know you guys are Vinny's mods and you do a great job on his channel. And I told him about our secret competition. I don't know if you guys knew about it, but he beat me to the silver play button and I'm very happy for him. Nick Starro, when I was born, my grandmother did my horoscope. She predicted I would be an actor or a politician. To this day, I don't know the difference. Right. Listen, I think most lawyers are frustrated actors because we want to get up. We want to tell a story. We want to convince people. We want to perform. That's what we do, you know, and also it's fun, right? You are performing. You're performing for a jury. There are a lot of lawyers who never see the inside of a courtroom. They only do paperwork. Those are not the frustrated actors. It's the ones who want to be trial lawyers. They want to get up and talk to a jury and convince them. Erin became a member. Welcome. Thank you, Liz, for your super sticker. Thank you, Liz, for your question, which we did get him to answer. Shannon, has this case reached the territory of malicious prosecution? I think so. But we're going to have to wait for the outcome and the final acquittal before we can get to that. Script to acquit. Canton Confidential had guest said he was hit by a snowplow. It was reported, but witnesses was intimidated to not come forward. I have heard that as well, that there was some sort of radio transmission that went out about a pedestrian hit by a snowplow. And then they were said, forget you ever heard that, or, you know, you're going to get, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I did hear that. I can't confirm the truth and veracity of it, but I heard that too. Blessed Mom from Texas is here. Thank you so much. Let's get to 100K. Hubert, most of us locals, Canton area, appreciate almost all experts' opinion and input on both the Karen Reed and the Sandra Birchmore case. Thanks, Attorney Mel and Vinny. Thank you, Hubert. What is Vinny's view on Julie Grant being anti-Karen Reed? Congratulations, Vinny. Thanks, Eileen. It's a great question. She's been very vocal about it. I don't know if he would have answered it. My feeling is he probably did not want to disparage a coworker, but we've seen Julie Grant's clear bias and hatred towards Karen Reed. And I think it's even come out that she's become friends with Jennifer McCabe, maybe, I think, unconfirmed. And or, you know, Kate Peter and the others that she's had on her channel. Don't know that for sure, or unless they're saying that she's friends with them now and she's really not. I don't know. But she's very anti-Karen Reed, and that's clear from her coverage. Michael says it's not the jury's job to solve the case, only to ask if the state's argument wins. Yes. Lola the Good Dog, we may not know what happened, but we know what did not happen. Right. That's the way I'm looking at it. He's not hit by a car, and a car did not hit John O'Keefe. Hubert says 40 pieces of red taillight would have been seen on 2 to 3 inches of white snow, period. Yes. Yes, unless you believe that the Canton PD is totally and completely incompetent. They would have found it. They didn't. We know it wasn't found until at least 8 hours later, after something like 18 inches of snow fell. I hope that the weatherman is going to at least come in and testify to that fact. And then all of a sudden, in the dark, that's when the red pieces of taillight began to reveal themselves for the CERT team. It's not the CERT team's job to collect evidence. It's the evidence of the crime scene services team, and they weren't even called. So many things wrong with this case. We can't expect someone like Vinnie to know every single detail when he's covering, many cases at a time. Drinking and being drunk are two different things. I agree with you, Alba Gamer. I agree. Word salad from Vinnie. He's going for ratings, says Liz. Blessed Mom, what a great show. Classy Melanie, love all of you. I've missed you all. We've missed you too. Free Karen Reed. Missed this case makes me angry. I agree. Tracy Fagan is here. She's a new member. Welcome. Candy's a new member. Do they have Uber in Canton? Just curious. Yeah, I'm wondering about that too. Like, people are so worried, like, well, how is John O'Keefe going to get home if she just left him there and went home? How is he going to get home? Don't they have Uber in Canton? Like, wouldn't you think? Maybe he would take an Uber home? I don't know. I'm sure they do, unless anybody says to the alternative, that they don't have it in Canton. I'd like to know. Shredder, Vinny's point about Karen Reed drinking doesn't follow logically. Look, I don't think that's logic. I don't think that's common sense either. I think, to me, common sense is that he wasn't hit by a car. And I think I clearly made that point. Karen isn't charged with DUI, right? Defense really needs to dismantle the drinking narrative. But listen, it's good to hear from Vinny, because if an experienced lawyer like Vinny is thinking that way, that's something, you're right, that the defense is going to need to dismantle, in my opinion. I agree with you. And so there are certain things that they are going to need to hammer home. And the good thing about doing these types of interviews is that we can see what it is that people are thinking. And we can see what it is that the defense is going to need to hammer home. Reasonable doubt is just one of those, as is the DUI thing. She wasn't charged with DUI. It was motor vehicle homicide involving DUI. There was no separate and apart DUI charge. ADA representing Bev. Thank you, Crazy Graham. I think I addressed that. Albert, wouldn't a major Hollywood movie editor for films be able to prove all the times the Sallyport video was messed with? No, I don't think they would be a forensic expert in a case such as like this. I think you need, like, specifically a forensic expert. But that is a good question. Kristen says, now that the crack daddies are hired by the defense, can they now be given all of the factors? All of the what do you mean, factors? If there's any more evidence that they're going to be given, I don't think that they need to review, like, Trooper Paul's report and things like that. They did review some text stream data because it was one of the 14 things that they were that they listed in their report that was talked about at the voir dire. So I don't know what factors you're talking about, Kristen, but if they're going to turn over that stuff, they have to do it quickly. I don't think at this point, we're pretty late in the game. So I don't know that there's anything else that they can give them to review. But if they find that there are things that are pertinent that they want them to come on, to head off at the pass, things that the prosecution is now bringing up, they may want them to look at that. Yes. James, how would Hanky know the cameras were inverted for the Sallyport? Because the camera settings, if they no longer have the cameras or the metadata. Yeah. And how did they all of a sudden come up with a video from January 1st of 2022 to prove that this is inverted? How? When they said everything was overwritten in 30 days. How does that happen? I have no idea. No idea. Zero. Let me just take a quick look at what these filings are, because I think what I'm going to do here's what I'm going to do. I need to download them so that we can talk about them. I'm going to, right now, when I end this stream, it is going to redirect you. I want to start a new stream. I want to keep the Vinnie stream separate from the next stream that I'm going to go straight into right now. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to, when I hit end on this, it's going to teleport you over to the new stream, and we're going to go over all the new filings, and we are going to keep going over the new filings because I am pretty sure that they're going to continue to drop all day. And so we're going to go there. We're going to talk about them. It's just going to be on a new stream. Okay. Everybody cool with that? Let me just check and see if there's any more questions. Thank you to Kevin for your Venmo. Thank you. That is very sweet of you. All right. Here's what's going to happen, my friends. I'm going to hit end on this. It's going to teleport you over to the new stream. So we are going to go right over there and start talking about all of these new filings. Thanks, Nina. Your thoughts on Karen Reed admitting again to drinking and driving in the recent Ted Daniel interview. Better say nothing. She's already said it before. She's not hiding the fact that she was drinking. There's receipts that she was drinking. I don't think there was receipts that she had 9 drinks, like they're trying to say. So again, I thought the third interview that we went over really humanized Karen in a way that the other interviews didn't. So I found the last interview that we went over together to be helpful to her. It humanized her. A lot of you said that. All right, I'm going to hit end. We're going over to the new stream. Safe travels. Thank you, moderators. Smash the like on your way out of here. Smash the like on your way in to the other stream. And I will see you in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Mrs. Bouquet. 3, 2, 1. Safe travels.